How do I tell a grown woman that she stinks without coming off rude? I have an employee who has horrible hygiene. It's not just a body odor scent like when you forget to put on deodorant. It's like she's never brushed her teeth, has never washed her work uniform. Being the boss, I have to confront her, but I've never had this issue with an employee before. How do I tell this grown woman she stinks and needs to work on her hygiene without hurting her feelings or making her feel uncomfortable?
The biggest piece of advice for difficult conversations of any kind, this one included, is clear is kind. As difficult and as awkward as it is, in this particular scenario, it's going to be more awkward for them than it is for you.
More directly, how would you word that conversation if you had to have it with someone?
You've clocked into office hours with work besties Sohan and Hameda, helping you survive and thrive between 9 and 5.
We believe in work and play, so get ready to crush your career and live your best life. Whoop, stumbled on my words there.
But you're going to live your best life because we pulled the most just unhinged, cooked dilemmas that we could think of because we were like, I would not know how to approach the situation at all. And also, like, I'm kind of curious, like, just in case, like, what if I want to do that thing and I want to know directly from my head of HR?
Yeah, so we're back with Jodi, who is our Chief People Officer at the place we work.
Yes.
We wanted to milk as much wisdom as we could from her, to be honest. So we've got some, like, wild dilemmas and we're going to get a direct guidance, opinion approach from HR at like how you would handle something like this. And there's a lot in there about salary discrepancies, office hygiene. What else was there?
Basically like what you're responsible for and like how much of like if an issue happens, even though you've prepared for it, like if that's your fault. There's just, we're going through like a lot. We're going through a lot of things. And honestly, like she'll always have an answer. Yeah. And it's always like, oh, of course. Of course. Of course that makes sense. Because this is someone who has won awards for this is ask an award-winning HR person your like dilemmas. Yeah. And we've done that.
Yeah, and I think it's really opened my eyes to like what HR can do for you like in the workplace as well. So maybe let's go in with an open mind and like try and reframe how we think about it because there's lots to learn from Jodi.
Yeah, and we're ready. We're clocked in. Just like you guys.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. I found out that a coworker in the same position with the same education, experience, workload, etc. is making twice what I make. I started at a company with the understanding that within a year I could be promoted and get a raise. Over the past year, I've ended up taking on the work of multiple people because the team is severely understaffed and I regularly put in extra hours to keep up. Despite doing significantly more than expected, I still haven't received a raise or the promotion I was promised. My boss has referred to me in the role that I was supposed to be promoted to, and others at the company treat me as if I already hold that position. At my last performance review, I was told that corporate isn't approving raises at the moment, and maybe I could expect one after the busy season. Recently, a coworker who was hired after me and has similar experience told me they make significantly more than I do, even though we perform the same work. My boss discourages discussing pay, but now I know about this discrepancy and feel underpaid and frustrated. I'm not sure how to approach my boss about this without it backfiring, and I want to make sure I get the recognition and compensation I was promised. How do I bring this up with management/HR without it backfiring and finally get the recognition I was promised?
Yeah, that is definitely a dilemma. Yes. Yeah. I am also of the thought that using somebody else's pay for your own benefit is not the right way to go. So I tend to agree a little bit with this person's manager on that. Pay transparency is now really a thing where, I mean, just even legally we can't ask people to not speak about their pay anymore, but it also has become really prevalent in terms of just being quite open about what people are earning. But I think even if you look at on paper your qualifications are the same as somebody else and your years of experience are the same as somebody else, that may still show up as a completely different level of capability for the role that you're currently doing. So I think kind of backing away from using that as your reason for asking for a raise. I would definitely encourage that, and really just focus on the value that you are creating and what you're bringing, and just reiterating those conversations that you've had around progression and salary increase at some point, and asking for a timeline on that. So maybe showing that you understand that, you know, there are constraints at the moment from a broader business perspective in terms of being able to do an increase, but I think reinforcing that you've continued to work at that level even despite not having received the promotion or the increase, and just wanting to understand what is a reasonable time frame that we can work toward, and is there anything else that your manager would like to see between now and then to be able to warrant that increase. So kind of asking for really tangible things, a timeline, and what are the indicators that will get me to that next level, I think would be really helpful.
Yes, we always talk about don't focus on the other person, focus on what you're doing. So this is a great example of that as well.
Totally. I think in this specific situation, which I'd love to get your take on, is like, I mean, we're getting one side of the story here. Obviously, we don't know the business situation, but have you ever witnessed something like this happening, and what do you think a reason would be why maybe someone was promised something and then they're not getting it, and then they find out that money is being spent on other people? Obviously, maybe they won't bring it up, but like, what would a reason be behind that, do you think?
Yeah, so I think if I think about a similar situation that our business has been in, would be definitely coming out of COVID, where we were really constrained in terms of what we could do from a broader business perspective, because we had lost so much money over that COVID period, and we were still in that recovery time frame. But we needed resources on the ground to be able to hit the targets that we had from a future perspective. So it was less about bringing somebody new on was more about what we needed to do in terms of future-proofing, and less about historical views. But when we were talking about being able to provide salary increases for anyone, we were really constrained on that, because we just don't have the business performance yet to be able to warrant that. But I think one of the things that I would definitely suggest if anyone was in that situation is trying to be as transparent as you can with your people around the situation that the business is in, so that you can give some level of confidence about, this is where we're at right now and we are constrained right now, but this is what we're working toward. And when we meet that, when we get there, then we're going to be in a position to be able to reward our team in terms of being able to do that. So trying to give as much transparency as you can around that is really key, because otherwise people are just kind of working blindly and thinking that I've got nothing to work toward if I'm not actually getting rewarded or recognised for this. I think there's a couple of ways to look at that.
So interesting.
Maybe even outside of this story, do you think there's a best way to frame a conversation about pay without it sounding like a complaint when you do want a pay rise? Because I know probably a lot of people struggle with actually approaching someone, and they always say, no one is going to give you a pay rise until you, like, I feel like that's like been the sentiment since at least I've been in like office environments where it's like, unless you ask for a raise, no one is offering you a raise. That's kind of like been the conversation.
Yeah.
So
it is, I think there's a few different factors that kind of work in play in terms of broader than, if you're looking for a salary increase for your current role, then that's a different situation, I think, to looking for a promotion that comes with a salary increase. So if it is that you're moving into a more senior role or a broader role, then I think that's a natural conversation in terms of where that sits from a salary perspective and your expectations around that. But if it is around, I'm doing my current role but I feel like I'm underpaid, then thinking about why that is. So is there market information that you can find out? And there's loads of different salary benchmarking tools online, or even just going on to Seek and being able to look for similar types of roles to the one that you're currently doing, so that you can get a range to say, this is what's happened. And it definitely happens where there are certain roles that kind of just shift drastically in terms of what the range of salary is. And it may just be that your manager or your the business that you're working in are not aware of some of those market shifts. So bringing that to their attention would be really helpful to be able to say, if I was looking externally for a similar kind of role, this would be the range that I would be paid for this for a similar role, and not doing it in a way of I will leave if I don't get it, but just to say I've done my research and this is what the market is showing. It is also something in terms of thinking about, these are the things that I'm doing that are broader than the core responsibilities of my role, or this is how I'm contributing more broadly to the organisation. So thinking about it in terms of, are you getting involved in like the mentoring program, for example? So you're actually not just focused on your own development, but you're helping somebody else in terms of theirs. So what are the broader things that you're doing across the organisation that's not just specific to your job description? And then the market information, I think, to help complement that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Follow up. Have you ever been in a scenario or seen a situation where someone's like salary, I guess, bracket decreases and they're on a salary that's higher than they're actually the market is showing? And how would you address that? Would you just have to let them keep that salary? Or
Yes.
You can't be like, actually.
Yes. We can reduce that now. Yes.
So you're not as valuable as we thought.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
That would be such an awkward conversation.
Yeah.
That would be.
I don't think it's happened very often, but definitely there's time where it kind of stagnates a little bit from a market perspective, particularly if there are parts of a role that are being have evolved quickly because of technology, or it's definitely a consideration at the moment when you think about, if you are looking at salary increases for the job that you're doing, and how potentially market shifts could be happening within, the parts of your role or your role completely. AI is definitely doing that at the moment, where it's kind of shifting people to think about the whole design of their job and the way that they do work. And one of the things that I think it's definitely a constant challenge for us, and I think many businesses at the moment, is really thinking about what are the opportunities for more efficiency, whether AI is the right answer, I think is probably a big question as well. But, are there other things that you can be doing to think about things more efficiently? But that's only one side of the equation. It's also about, okay, if I free up time here because I'm using AI or whatever it may be, what am I doing then with that time to create more value, and how can I show that? And that's, I think, a huge part of thinking about your role and how it might be shifting or it might be evolving, because I think we often think about AI as a huge time saver and it's going to, give us all this time back. But from an organisational sense, it's, okay, well, what are you going to do with that time? How are you going to create more value? So if you're able to show that, I think it will add weight to a salary increase conversation as well.
Totally agree. We literally were talking about
I
that
know.
in the last episode,
Yes.
aligned. Yes, love it. All right, let's go to the next dilemma. Oh, great. I have to read this one. Okay, great.
Yeah.
How do I tell a grown woman that she stinks without coming off rude? I have an employee who has horrible hygiene. It's not just a body odour scent like when you forget to put on deodorant. It's like she's never brushed her teeth, has never washed her work uniform, has never washed herself properly. Within a few feet, the odour smacks you in the face. It's not just me who notices. I have other employees who have pointed this out. I need to tell her she needs to work on her hygiene, but I just don't understand how someone isn't conscious about this type of thing. If it was a here and there thing, I wouldn't say anything, but it's every single day that she comes to work, and it's quite hard to even be in a room with her because it's so awful. Being the boss, I have to confront her, but I've never had this issue with an employee before, and I don't know how to navigate it. How do I tell this grown woman she stinks and needs to work on her hygiene without hurting her feelings or making her feel uncomfortable?
Yeah. The biggest piece of advice for difficult conversations of any kind, this one included, is clear is kind, is probably the biggest piece of feedback, as difficult and as awkward as it is. In this particular scenario, it's going to be more awkward for them than it is for you in terms of being able to give that feedback. And I think the other thing, you can probably assume in this conversation that there's some kind of medical condition that might be behind this, rather than her choosing to not shower or not use deodorant. So approaching it with kindness, but also sensitivity. But I think also you just need to be super clear in these situations where like definitely had conversations where it's super awkward. It's not a conversation that you want to have. But it's kind of a, you know, have a really clear message that you want to convey, but in a kind way. And I would say, if in these kind of situations where it's really sensitive, write down what you want to say so that it comes out in the way that you actually intend. Because often you get yourself flustered if it's a really awkward conversation, and it might just blurt out and you think, oh God, I didn't want to say that in that way. So writing it down, trying to say something really clearly but kindly, but making sure that the message is really clear about the impact that it's having on other people, and maybe asking if there's any support that person needs in terms of, you know, accommodations at work or whatever it may be, and kind of approaching in that way. But yeah, it's hard, but I've definitely seen situations where people try and tiptoe around sensitive issues. So we've actually had, not that exact scenario, but scenarios, particularly when we've got teenagers working at site, where sometimes hygiene is an issue, and that's the manager will leave a hygiene basket out, you know, so leave a basket out with deodorant and, you know, body spray and that kind of thing. The person who needs it never realises that they need it, so they're the ones that avoid it. So it is just about trying to have a direct conversation with that person. Yeah.
Okay, more directly, how would you word that conversation if you had to have it with someone? Because I feel like we can talk about the advice, but generally, like, I'm thinking, how would you? Because, okay, first things that come to my mind, I'm like, you wouldn't want to frame it around, oh, people have come to me to raise an issue, because then they get really conscious of everyone else being aware. So, yeah, how would you do that? Yeah,
I would say, so in terms of any kind of sensitive or difficult conversation, I always start it with saying, this is something I wish I had have said to you earlier. I've noticed it for a while, but it's an awkward and a sensitive conversation. But I'd like to be able to have it with you because I care about you and I care about your position in the team. And to say something along the lines of, you may or may not have had this feedback before, but there is an odour that that we've noticed and we have observed, and I'm not sure if there's anything that you are aware of around that, but I just thought it was important to be able to give you that feedback. So as awkward as that is, and even just saying it out loud in a role play is awkward, but and that's why I think writing it down and practicing is important. But yeah, I think trying to say it in that way of, I know this is awkward. I appreciate that it is. I wish I had have said it earlier. I haven't because it's awkward, you know, those kind of things. Hopefully kind of lays the groundwork for you're coming at this from a place of care, not to try and humiliate the person or make them feel silly. So
no, I love that because it did feel phrased in a way that would open up the floor for them to open up if there were issues, for example, like homelessness. Medical situations, a phobia of showering, that could be a thing, like absolutely. So I think that's actually really solid advice.
That was great. I love that. I'm gonna go tell everyone. Just kidding.
Am I the problem for using my unlimited vacation time to avoid meetings at work? Since work went fully remote in March, the onslaught of Zoom meetings had become worse and worse. It's so bad now that most days I'm in back-to-back Zoom meetings from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., 95% of which are completely useless, thus leaving only 2 hours for me to get my actual work done during the 9-to-5 workday. As a result, on many days, I've had to work well into the evening and even sometimes on the weekend. This is the norm for other people in the company too. I brought this up with my boss, and she said that while she's powerless to reduce the meeting load since most of them are scheduled by other groups within the company, she suggested that I use my unlimited vacation time to block off a few days each week where I can work uninterrupted. We agreed that I would still attend 5% of meetings that are actually useful, example, one-on-one meetings with my boss. I've been doing this for the last 3 months, and it's been fantastic. Last week, someone, a meeting happy person in another group, go figure, figured out our scheme. They saw that I was regularly working during my vacation time and got very upset that I was exploiting this loophole. My boss is backing me up 100%, but news of what I was doing quickly got out and it spurred a huge debate on Slack. Most people think our scheme is a very clever loophole to avoid corporate BS everyone hates, but others are saying it's inconsiderate since A, if everyone did it, meetings would be impossible to schedule, which would B, cause the leadership to rethink the vacation policy. Also, some people are just uptight, and think that loopholes are inherently immoral. And then update, for those wondering how unlimited vacation time works at my company, the policy is basically, as long as you get your work done, which is entirely your boss's call, the company doesn't care how many hours you actually work. Since my boss 100% approves of my vacation time, there is technically no issue according to company policy.
Yeah.
Interesting
Wow.
scheme.
Yes.
What are your
it
thoughts
is.
on that scheme and the boss like encouraging the employee to use vacation time to avoid meetings?
Yeah. It sounds like an issue that the boss needs to take up with their boss around the amount of meetings.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's less about the vacation time, even though you shouldn't have to use your own vacation time, whether it's unlimited or not,
Yeah.
to be able to be able to get actual work done. But yeah, it sounds like it's the manager who's actually avoiding to have the hard conversation. If they're recognising that the meetings are pointless, but they're not wanting to do anything about it, then I think that's primarily where the issue lies. So if I was in this situation, I would definitely encourage them for the manager to be having the conversation with their department head or whoever they report to about who and why people need to attend meetings, because it does become like that. Meeting fatigue is real, particularly when you are on back-to-back meetings and there are things that you need to follow up out of meetings, but you don't get to it until much later. So I definitely think there's a conversation to be had around how effective the meetings are and whether you need to attend or not. The other avenue to maybe consider is if the meetings are being recorded and and now most meetings have a transcript or some kind of meeting notes that come out of it, can you just get a copy of that rather than having to attend the meeting, especially if it's not something, it might be an information-only kind of meeting. Is that something that you can just get the notes of rather than having to actually spend your time there? But for me, this would sit squarely with the manager around them being able to have this conversation and addressing it. Yeah.
So true. I have a question, like outside of this dilemma, but in the same theme. Do you think it's ever okay to bend the rules if your boss is on board, and where do you draw the line?
In this kind of scenario.
Well, let's say this kind of scenario.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It depends what the purpose is. I'm not going to give you a straight answer on that. Yes or no. Because if it is... So if I give an example on this where I do think it's okay, where if I think about our finance team, for example, they, over different periods of the year, we have to do financial audits, and it means that there's a huge chunk of time that they have to spend. Usually it involves night and weekend work, and instead of going through the system to do time in lieu and whatnot, the manager will just give them additional days off in terms of saving that time, knowing that they've worked. So that kind of thing, completely fine. If, though, the manager is on board for this loophole because they are avoiding having a difficult conversation with somebody else, then no, I'm not on board with that. I think that's where it does become a bigger issue, and that can just kind of compound into bigger and bigger things, or it perhaps sets a precedent where it becomes okay for one person but not okay for another, and then that becomes a bigger issue in itself. So I think it depends what's kind of that's grounded in the first place. Yeah.
So true. Okay, let's move on to the last dilemma. Am I the problem for not answering work emails while on vacation, resulting in the loss of a client? My husband and I took a much-needed vacation to the beach last week, and before we left, I sent emails around letting everyone know I'd be completely inaccessible for the week, so to come and see me for any work materials needed, files, etc. I gave everyone everything I knew or thought they'd need and left confident that everyone had prepared themselves, seeing as I'd given them 8 days to prepare. When I returned, I found chaos in the office. Apparently, one of my colleagues had needed files for a particularly important client of ours and had not been able to find them in my office, and I never responded to calls or emails as I warned I wouldn't do. This coworker knew they'd be handling this client and had 8 days and 12 hours a day to ask me for all pertinent files and appears to have not. In any case, I was blamed because the client is technically mine and I am the supervisor of this coworker. I contend that I am blameless because this coworker had 8 days to collect all their files like their coworkers did, and they neglected to do so. No one seems to care about that. Am I the problem here?
No, you're not the problem here.
Okay.
If you're on leave and it sounds like this person has been well prepared before their leave and tried to prepare everybody else, that no, like definitely there's no obligation to reply or to be in contact while you're on leave. I think if there's something in particular that becomes urgent, and I guess the only thing might be to have a conversation with your manager before you go on leave to say, if there is anything urgent, then send me a text and that's what I'll respond to, but I'm not checking my emails, for example.
Oh, that's so smart.
But I mean, in this instance, it sounds like they did everything they could to try and be prepared and prepare everyone else around them. So no, I would say it's definitely not on them to have to respond. There's definitely as I think you become more senior in an organisation, there's an expectation that even if you're on leave and something happens, you're going to respond. But again, I would suggest that that's kind of set out in advance about the communication method to which you'll respond to, rather than saying, I'm going to check my emails every night. I don't think that's reasonable. It's more so if somebody calls me or sends me a text, then I'll respond. But, I think in this situation, it sounds like they did everything they can to be prepared and prepare everyone else.
Do you think it changes things that this person is the supervisor, or let's say maybe they were the manager of the coworker? Like, do you think that then changes it because there's a responsibility on that person to be across what their team is doing and maybe have some like forethought into that they might need this file because it's an active campaign with a client?
Yeah, I think in terms of a responsibility to have the information available, yes, but it sounds like in this situation they tried to do that, in advance of letting people know where things were or giving them plenty of time to be able to ask for the right amount of information. But again, I would say that in that situation, it may just be an agreement around, if you need something, this is how I can be contacted. But otherwise, I'm not going to respond in terms of this situation. So, I think definitely as you become more senior, there is, you do have some responsibility in terms of making sure that there's a continuation of the business while you're away. But yeah, in this situation, it sounds like there was lots of things put in place in advance. So
eight days in advance to be specific.
Although it does kind of sound like they kind of told everyone and then waited for people to approach them for things. Whereas like perhaps if they had, and I guess this is like what kind of
more proactive.
Worker you are. It's like, okay, I know who's taking care of my clients, so let me make sure I speak to them directly about the specific clients before I go.
Doing a handover.
Yeah.
So much insight. Thank you
thanks.
so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom.
Yes.
I feel like I've learned so much.
Oh my gosh. And there's still so much more I feel like we need to talk about, because we didn't even get into like the beginning of your career when you started out in people in a completely different way, which I would really love to hear about. But
thank you.
We've literally taken up like 2 hours of your time, so I think we'll let you go.
No, all good. Anytime. I'm happy to come back.
We'll get you on again for sure. But thank you so much. And thanks for clocking in.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Office Hours with Sohan and Hameda is a Val Morgan Digital production and part of the BuzzFeed Australia network. Have a question or topic you want us to cover, or a workplace dilemma you want us to unpack? Send us a DM on Instagram at officehoursbf, or drop us an email on officehours@valmorgan.com.au.
For more, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at officehoursbf. You can follow Sohan on socials at Sohan Judge, and follow Hameda on socials at It's Hameda.
Our music is by Jasic. Make sure to hit subscribe or follow so you don't miss an episode. And if you like what you hear, please rate us 5 stars and tell your friends to clock in.